The funeral director lowered his voice as if grief itself might overhear us. "Miss Hayes, would you like a few more minutes before we begin?" I didn't answer right away. I kept staring at the second row. 6 chairs, perfectly aligned, completely empty, each one marked with a small white card printed neatly, "Family reserved." The chapel smelled faintly of lilies and furniture polish. Sunlight slipped through stained glass, throwing soft patches of blue and gold across the carpet. People shifted behind me. Friends, co-workers, 2 women from church I barely knew. They were all here, everyone except my family. My phone vibrated again inside my coat pocket, the 5th time in less than a minute. I already knew who it was. Not calling to apologize, not rushing in late, calling to make sure I didn't embarrass them. Because 30 minutes earlier, while I sat in my car outside the cemetery gripping the steering wheel hard enough to hurt, my mother had left a voicemail I would never forget. Her voice wasn't sad. It wasn't trembling. It sounded irritated. Background noise spilled through the recording, laughter, splashing water, music echoing across open space. "Lauren," she said sharply, "you need to be reasonable. Ryan has investors here, important ones. We can't just leave his event now. Try not to make today more dramatic than it already is." More dramatic. I stood beside my daughter Ellie's tiny white casket and realized something strange. I wasn't surprised. Not really. The shock had already passed somewhere between the hospital room and that voicemail. What remained felt colder, cleaner, final. The director cleared his throat gently. "We can delay a few minutes if someone is on the way." I looked at Megan, my coworker, my closest friend, standing beside me. Her eyes were wet with anger more than grief. "They're not coming, are they?" she whispered. I shook my head once. "No." The word felt heavy and oddly peaceful leaving my mouth. I took a slow breath. "Let's begin." The pianist touched the keys. Soft music filled the chapel. And as Ellie's funeral officially started without her grandparents, without her uncle, without anyone who shared my last name, something inside me stopped waiting for love that had never truly existed. Grief should have consumed me. That's what people expect. But standing there, listening to the pastor speak gently about a life that lasted only 4 months, my thoughts kept circling one unsettling detail. Messages had already started arriving that morning, before the service even began. Texts from relatives, "We heard you wanted privacy. Your mom said you preferred a quiet goodbye, thinking of you during your private service." Private. I had sent the funeral details to everyone. Date, time, chapel address, cemetery location. Nothing about today was private, which meant one thing: someone had changed the story. I felt Megan lean closer. "Lauren," she murmured, discreetly turning her phone toward me. On her screen was an Instagram story. A long turquoise pool glimmered under Arizona sunlight. Servers carried trays of drinks. Music played loudly. My brother Ryan stood near the water smiling beside a group of well-dressed guests. My mother laughed beside him, sunglasses perched perfectly on her face. Text overlay across the video. "Perfect day with the Hayes family." My stomach didn't drop. It hardened, because this wasn't just absence. They weren't grieving somewhere else. They were celebrating, and somehow people believed I had asked them not to come. Before I keep going, I want to ask something. Please like and subscribe. Because stories like this tend to find people who understand complicated families. And tell me, where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it? If you've ever been the person expected to understand, no matter how much it hurt, you'll probably recognize parts of what comes next. Because this didn't begin at the funeral. It began years earlier, long before Ellie was born. My name is Lauren Hayes. I was 30 when my daughter died. I lived in Chandler, Arizona, one of those places where neighborhoods look identical and families appear perfect from the outside. Growing up, my parents loved appearances. Image mattered, reputation mattered, and nothing represented success to them more than my younger brother, Ryan Hayes. Ryan wasn't a bad person in the obvious sense. He didn't scream. He didn't bully. He simply moved through life convinced the world existed to support his momentum. And my parents agreed. Family dynamic Ryan was charismatic, confident, the kind of man strangers trusted instantly. By 28, he was a luxury real estate agent selling desert view homes to wealthy clients. My mother introduced him like a celebrity. "This is our son Ryan. He's doing incredible things." My father told people. "He's going to elevate this family." I was introduced differently. "This is Lauren. She's very nurturing." Nurturing, reliable, sweet. Words that sound kind until you realize they mean invisible. At a family barbecue years earlier. "Mom, Ryan just closed another listing." "Dad, that boy has instincts." Ryan laughed. "Just working hard." Mom turned briefly toward me. "Lauren, how's teaching?" "It's good," I said. "My students finished their art showcase." "That's nice," she replied quickly, already facing Ryan again. "Tell your father about the developer you met." I remember smiling politely. Inside, a familiar thought surfaced. My achievements were tolerated. His were celebrated. I learned early not to compete. Peace came easier when I minimized myself. I became an elementary school art teacher. Stable, predictable, safe. I loved my job. Children noticed small things adults ignored. They saw effort. They saw kindness. Ironically, my students made me feel more visible than my own family ever had. Ryan, meanwhile, grew into exactly the son my parents dreamed of. Designer suits, luxury listings, networking events every weekend, and eventually, the infamous pool parties. Ryan believed business happened best around water, music, and alcohol. My parents treated those events like royal ceremonies. One evening at my parents' house, "Ryan, I'm planning the biggest pool event yet, investors flying in." Mom clasped her hands. "That's huge," Dad nodded proudly. "This could change everything." I said lightly. "Sounds busy," Ryan grinned. "You should come help greet guests, you're good with people." Mom added, "Yes, Lauren, families love seeing supportive siblings." Supportive siblings. That phrase stayed with me long after dinner ended, because I realized something quietly painful. My role in Ryan's life wasn't sister. It was reinforcement. When I got pregnant with Ellie at 29, I truly believed things would change. Her father and I had separated months earlier. It wasn't dramatic, just two people realizing love wasn't enough, so Ellie became my new beginning. I imagined my parents softening, grandparents rushing to help, family finally feeling balanced. Hope makes intelligent people naive. Ellie arrived early after complications. Tiny, fragile, perfect. The first time she wrapped her fingers around mine, every insecurity I'd ever carried felt irrelevant. I sent photos immediately. Hospital pictures, videos, updates. My mother responded hours later. "Adorable, don't forget Ryan's networking brunch Saturday." I laughed it off then. I told myself she was distracted. That once Ellie came home, everything would shift. Ellie's health was delicate. Breathing monitors, specialist visits, frequent checkups. One terrifying night, her oxygen levels dropped suddenly. I rushed her to the emergency room alone. Fluorescent lights, beeping monitors, fear sitting heavy in my chest. I called my parents. "Can one of you come sit with me?" Mom hesitated. "Well, Ryan's hosting clients tonight." I closed my eyes. "It's just for an hour." Dad took the phone. "Keep us updated." The call ended. I stared at Ellie sleeping under hospital lights and felt something shift. Not anger, recognition. I realized my family didn't ignore me because they disliked me. They ignored me because they believed I would tolerate it. And until then, I always had. As Ellie grew, Ryan's career exploded. Every family conversation revolved around his success. Even when Ellie struggled medically, discussions drifted back to him. "Ryan's girlfriend's family owns half of Paradise Valley," Mom said. "This relationship could open doors," Dad replied. "Ellie has another specialist appointment tomorrow," I added slowly. Mom nodded distractedly. "That's good, honey." Ryan checked his phone. "Anyway, the pool party will seal everything." I sat there holding my daughter thinking, we live in completely different emotional worlds. 2 months before Ellie died, doctors warned me her condition was unstable. I sent the update to the family group chat. Ryan replied 3 hours later, folded hands, that was it. No call, no question, just an emoji between real estate posts. My mother called later, not to ask how Ellie was, to discuss whether postponing Ryan's upcoming pool party might look unprofessional. I remember gripping the kitchen counter. My daughter might not survive, I said quietly. Mom sighed. We just have to stay positive. Positive. As if optimism could replace presence. Ellie died just before dawn 3 weeks later. The hospital room went silent. No dramatic music, no cinematic moment, just stillness. I held her long after the nurse gently asked if she could take her. My body still expected her weight even after she was gone. I called my parents first. Mom didn't answer. Dad did. I told him. He paused, then said, Your mother's finalizing Ryan's event setup. We'll figure something out. That sentence changed everything. Hope didn't shatter. It dissolved. The funeral was scheduled 2 days later. The only available time. Same afternoon as Ryan's major pool party. I sent the details carefully. Date, time, chapel address, cemetery. Mom replied, We'll try. Ryan never acknowledged it. Still, a small irrational part of me believed they would arrive. Because surely this was different. Surely death outweighed networking. But standing in that chapel beside Ellie's casket, watching strangers fill seats meant for family, I understood the truth. They hadn't failed to choose. They had chosen already. The pastor spoke softly. Megan cried quietly beside me. A coworker placed a hand on my shoulder. When the service ended, the pastor asked, Would the family like a private moment? Silence stretched painfully. Everyone understood. There was no family behind me, only witnesses. We walked to the cemetery. Arizona sun bright and merciless overhead. The tiny casket lowered slowly into the ground. I held Ellie's blanket against my chest. And at that exact moment, my phone buzzed again. Megan hesitated. Lauren, I think you should see this. She turned her phone toward me. Another pool party video. Music loud. Guests laughing. My mother smiling beside Ryan. Caption. Keeping the Hayes family in our prayers while Lauren requested privacy today. Requested privacy. My breath left me slowly. They hadn't just abandoned me. They had rewritten reality. They turned their absence into my decision. My grief into their excuse. And something inside me went completely still. Standing beside fresh dirt covering my daughter's grave, I finally understood. This wasn't neglect. It was reputation management. They believed I would stay quiet. They believed grief would make me small. They had no idea that burying Ellie alone was the exact moment I stopped protecting them. Because while my family floated beside a luxury pool pretending everything was perfect, I had just realized something powerful. I had proof, and for the first time in my life, I was ready to use it. The burial ended quietly. People hugged me one by one, gentle, careful hugs people give when they're afraid you might shatter. Megan didn't let go immediately. Her hand stayed wrapped around my wrist like she was anchoring me to something solid. Do you want to come home with me? She asked softly. I shook my head. I just need a minute. That was only partly true. What I really needed was silence, because something unfamiliar had begun forming underneath my grief. Not rage, not hysteria, clarity. We walked toward her car anyway, mostly because standing beside fresh dirt felt unbearable. The Arizona heat pressed down hard, the kind that makes the world look unreal. Inside the car, the air conditioner hummed loudly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Megan turned her phone toward me again. I didn't want to show you during the service, she said carefully. But Lauren, you need to see how they're spinning this. Another story played. Ryan stood near the pool holding a drink, laughing with a group of guests. Behind him, my father worked the crowd confidently. My mother leaned toward a woman in a wide sun hat, smiling sympathetically. Text across the screen, sending love to Lauren today. She asked for privacy while the family gathers quietly. I blinked slowly. They told people I didn't want them there. Megan nodded. Multiple posts say that. I felt something cold settle in my chest, not heartbreak, recognition. This wasn't avoidance. This was strategy, Megan. Lauren, this isn't okay. Me, no, Megan. They're protecting Ryan. I stared ahead through the windshield. They're protecting themselves. Because if people knew the truth, that grandparents skipped their granddaughter's funeral for a pool party, their carefully built image would collapse. So they rewrote reality before anyone could question it. And they counted on one thing, my silence. All my life I had absorbed discomfort to keep peace. I translated hurt into understanding, excused behavior, minimized pain. But grief does something strange. It strips away negotiation. There is no emotional energy left to pretend. Sitting in Megan's car, still wearing funeral black, I realized I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth to exist publicly, for once. The voicemail my phone buzzed again. Mom, calling again, I let it ring. Then she texted, call me immediately. People are asking questions, not are you okay, not I'm sorry questions. Image management had already begun. Megan looked at me carefully. Do you want to listen to the voicemail again? I hesitated, then nodded. I opened my phone and pressed play. Her voice filled the car, bright, annoyed. Water splashing behind her. Music playing. Lauren, sweetheart, we cannot leave Ryan's event right now. Important people are here. You need to stop making everything so emotional. It's just unfortunate timing. Try to understand. The recording ended. Silence filled the car. Megan whispered, stunned, she said that today, 23 minutes before the service. Megan leaned back slowly. Oh my God. And suddenly, hearing it again, outside shock, outside denial, something aligned in my mind. They hadn't merely chosen the party. They believed the choice was reasonable. That realization changed everything. I opened my phone, saved the voicemail, then saved it again. Email, cloud storage, notes app, 3 separate backups. Megan watched quietly. What are you doing? Making sure reality can't be rewritten. Because for the first time, I understood power in my family. Power wasn't loud confrontation. Power was documentation. We started looking deeper. Tagged posts, guest stories, comments, and the pattern became obvious. My parents were actively telling guests. I requested privacy. The funeral was small by choice. They were respecting my wishes. Every lie positioned them as compassionate parents. Every lie erased my abandonment. My hands stopped shaking. Emotion drained away, replaced by focus. Megan, Lauren, what are you thinking? Me, they think grief makes me weak. Megan, yeah. Me, they forgot I've spent my entire life observing before reacting. She studied my face carefully. You're calm. I know. And that scared me more than anger would have. Midpoint realization begins for years. I believed my family dynamic was accidental. Favoritism, personality differences, unintentional neglect. But sitting there, scrolling through coordinated social posts, I realized something deeper. This system worked because I allowed it. Every time I stayed quiet, their narrative strengthened. Today was simply the first time consequences could be undeniable. I looked down at Ellie's blanket folded in my lap. Her scent still faintly clung to it, and one thought rose clearly. They abandoned her, and then protected their reputation. That wasn't misunderstanding. That was intention, and intention deserved exposure. I didn't act immediately. That's important. People imagine revenge as emotional impulse. It wasn't. It was methodical. I opened a blank note and began building a message. Typed, deleted, rewrote, removed emotional language, removed accusations, left only verifiable facts, because truth hits harder when it doesn't scream. Megan, what are you going to say? Me, nothing dramatic. Megan, you sure? I nodded. They expect drama. Drama lets them dismiss me. So what instead? Documentation. She smiled slightly. That's terrifying. For the first time since Ellie died, my breathing felt steady. Grief remained enormous, but underneath it, control returned. I gathered funeral program photo, screenshots of texts with service time, missed calls from that morning, voicemail audio file, social media posts claiming privacy. Each piece felt like assembling reality itself. I wasn't inventing anything. I was preserving truth before it could disappear. Megan asked quietly, "Are you sure you want to do this today?" I thought about going home, crying, sleeping, waiting. But then I imagined tonight. My parents returning from the party telling relatives Lauren wanted to be alone. Lauren was emotional. Lauren understood. And the story would settle permanently. Ellie would become a footnote. I shook my head. If I wait, they win. The message: we sat under a mesquite tree outside a pharmacy parking lot. Completely ordinary place, which somehow felt right. Life moving normally while mine had changed forever. I opened 3 message threads, family group chat, extended relatives list, Contacts gathered from tagged party guests. One message, no variations, no exaggeration, just truth. I read it aloud to Megan before sending. The message narrated, "Since several people were told I requested privacy today, I want to clarify something. My daughter Ellie's funeral took place at noon. I buried her without my parents or brother present. Attached are the funeral details I sent, my unanswered calls this morning, and the voicemail left while I was on my way to the service explaining they chose Ryan's pool party instead. I'm sharing this only so Ellie's memory is not surrounded by misinformation." Megan exhaled slowly. "That's devastatingly calm." I nodded. "Exactly." My finger hovered over send. One moment longer. One final chance to stay silent. Then I pressed it. Nothing happened. 5 seconds. 10. Then delivered, read. My phone exploded with notifications. Mom calling. Dad calling. Ryan calling. Overlapping vibrations filled the car. I silenced the phone and watched, because for the first time I wasn't reacting. I was observing consequences unfold. Megan whispered, "It's happening." I nodded slowly. "Yes." A new Instagram story appeared. Music gone, camera shaky. Guests standing in clusters staring at their phones. Someone whispered loudly, "Wait, she buried the baby alone." Another voice, "That voicemail is real." I didn't feel triumph, only release. Truth had left my body and entered the world. Ryan called. I finally answered Ryan on his 4th attempt. He didn't say hello. "What the hell did you just do?" His voice was sharp, panicked. I leaned back calmly. "I told the truth." "You couldn't wait," he snapped. "Do you know who's here?" I almost laughed, not cruelly, just tired. "You mean the people who mattered more than Ellie's funeral?" Silence. Then anger. "You're ruining everything." There it was, not grief, not regret, reputation. Dialogue exchange, full sequence, Ryan. "Investors are asking questions." "Good," I said. "You embarrassed Mom in front of everyone." Ryan said. "No, she embarrassed herself." "You're acting irrational," he frowned. "I buried my daughter alone. Do you have any idea what I am going through right now?" I almost cried. "Listen, I get it, but this had nothing to do with me." He spoke coldly. "Everything in this family has always had to do with you." I bounced back. He went quiet, then muttered, "You're destroying my future." And in that moment, clarity sharpened completely. They still believed the tragedy was the party, not the funeral. I said softly, "No, the truth is," and I hung up. Fallout Begins messages flooded in. Relatives shocked. Church members apologizing. Guests asking if the voicemail was real. One text stood out. From Ryan's girlfriend, Hadley. "Did your mom really say that?" I sent only the audio file. No commentary. 3 minutes later, she replied, "Oh my God. Revenge stories make victory feel triumphant." It wasn't. Ellie was still gone, nothing fixed that, but something toxic finally left my chest. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the lie alone. Megan received live updates from someone still at the party. Guests leaving early. Conversations hushed. My mother crying near the pool. My father arguing with a donor. Ryan pacing, phone pressed to his ear. The perfect event dissolving in real time. All because reality entered the room. As the sun began to lower, my phone buzzed again. A voicemail from my father. His voice sounded different. Strained. "Lauren, people are leaving. Your mother's falling apart. Whatever point you wanted to make, you've made it. Please call us so we can fix this." Fix this. Not fix what happened to me. Fix the damage to them. I stared at the message and understood something final. They still didn't understand. And what I did next would make sure they never controlled the story again. I didn't go home immediately after sending the message. I stayed parked under that mesquite tree while the world rearranged itself in real time. My phone kept vibrating across the console. Call after call. Mom, Dad, Ryan. Unknown numbers. I watched them appear without touching the screen. For most of my life, I answered instantly. Smoothed things over. Explained misunderstandings. Protected everyone's comfort. But that afternoon felt different. For once, silence belonged to me. Megan broke the quiet first. "They're panicking." I nodded slightly. "They finally lost control of the narrative." Another notification appeared. A new social media story from someone still at the party. The camera panned across the pool. Music gone. Guests clustered in small circles, phones raised, faces tight with discomfort. Someone whispered loudly enough to be heard. "Wait, she buried the baby alone." Another voice answered. "Her mom said she wanted privacy." Then a third voice. "Well, listen to the voicemail." The video ended abruptly. Megan exhaled slowly. That's it, the illusion just broke. And she was right. My family had always depended on reputation, not truth. And reputation collapses fastest when witnesses compare notes. My phone rang again. "Dad." I stared at the screen longer this time, then answered. His voice came fast. "Lauren, what have you done?" No hello, no apology, just crisis management. "I told people what happened," I said calmly. "You blindsided us," he snapped. "Guests are leaving." I closed my eyes briefly. "I buried Ellie without you." "That's not fair," he said quickly. "You know how important today was for Ryan." The words settled heavily between us. Even now, even after everything, he still framed the tragedy as scheduling conflict. "Me, did you think about Ellie while you were serving drinks?" "Dad, that's cruel." "Me, was the funeral convenient?" "Dad, we were going to come afterward." "Me, after lowering her into the ground." Silence, then frustration. "You're emotional right now." I almost smiled. There it was, the lifelong dismissal. I answered quietly, "No, I'm clear." He lowered his voice. "Your mother is humiliated. People are questioning our character." I looked out at traffic passing normally beyond the parking lot. "That sounds uncomfortable." He exhaled sharply. "Lauren, families handle things privately." I replied gently. "You handled it publicly first." And I ended the call. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That surprised me. I expected adrenaline. Instead, I felt grounded. Because the conversation revealed something essential, they still believed authority belonged to them. They expected guilt to pull me back into obedience. But grief had removed my fear of disappointing them. What more could they take from me? Megan's phone buzzed again. She read silently, eyes widening. "Okay, this is escalating." "What happened?" She turned the screen toward me. A text from a teacher whose husband attended the party. Hadley confronted Ryan in front of everyone. She played the voicemail out loud. I blinked. Out loud. At the party, Megan continued reading. "Her parents left immediately. A developer couple followed. Apparently someone told your mom, 'I don't associate with families who abandon funerals.'" I leaned back slowly. Reality was doing its work without me. No shouting. No dramatic revenge scene, just consequence. Ryan called once more. I answered. His voice sounded different now, less angry, more desperate. "Lauren, you need to fix this." "Fix this?" The same phrase again. "How?" I asked calmly. "Tell people you misunderstood Mom," he said quickly. "Say grief affected you." I laughed softly, not mockingly, just disbelief. "You want me to lie? I want you to stop destroying everything I've built." I inhaled slowly. "My daughter died, and I'm sorry," he said, rushing the words. "But this didn't need to become public." That sentence changed everything. Because it revealed the core truth. The problem wasn't what happened. The problem was that others knew. Me. "Ryan, did you ever plan to come to the funeral?" "We were busy." A cold, simple reply. "That's not an answer." I spoke. "Ryan, Mom said you understood. Did you call me?" I asked. Silence. "Or did you text me?" Silence again. "Did you acknowledge Ellie died?" I questioned. His voice hardened defensively. "You're trying to make me the villain." I answered calmly. "I didn't make you anything. I stopped protecting you." He whispered, almost stunned. "You've never talked to me like this." "I've never buried my child before," I said with grief. "I am sorry for that," he said. He had no better response. I hung up. Within an hour, messages shifted tone completely. Earlier texts had asked if there was misunderstanding. Now people apologized. Relatives admitted they had believed my parents' version. Church friends expressed shock. One message from Aunt Denise read, "Your mother told everyone you insisted on being alone. I'm so sorry." The social narrative had flipped. The same people who once praised my parents' devotion were now reevaluating years of behavior through a new lens. That moment, subtle but powerful, marked the true power shift. Not humiliation, recontextualization. People began remembering old moments differently. Family gatherings, missed milestones, patterns they previously ignored. Truth doesn't just expose one event, it rewrites history. Megan received another update. "The caterers are packing up early," she said. I pictured it clearly. Half-full glasses sweating in the sun. Music stopped mid-playlist. Guests leaving quietly to avoid association. Ryan's carefully constructed moment dissolving. Not through attack, through absence. Because once admiration disappears, performance has no audience. I finally drove home near evening. Exhaustion settled over me like heavy fog. When I pulled into my condo complex, Megan's voice tightened. "Lauren!" My parents stood near the entrance, waiting. Mom wore oversized sunglasses despite the shade. Dad's posture looked smaller than I'd ever seen. They rushed forward as I stepped out. "Lauren," Mom said urgently, "we need to talk." Her voice trembled, not with grief, with fear. "Mom, why would you do this publicly?" Me. "Because you made it public first." "Mom, you humiliated us." Me. "You left your granddaughter's funeral." Dad stepped in quickly. "This has gone too far." I studied them carefully. Neither asked how I was, neither mentioned Ellie. The conversation centered entirely on fallout. Me. "Did you listen to the voicemail after you sent it?" Mom. "I was stressed." Me. "You called my daughter, just unfortunate timing." Mom winced. "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" She hesitated. "There were expectations." I nodded slowly. "Yes, and you chose them." Dad sighed heavily. "We thought you'd understand." That sentence landed harder than anything else. Understand. My lifelong roles summarized in one word. I realized then something deeply freeing. They weren't incapable of love. They were incapable of prioritizing me over image. And they truly didn't see that as wrong. Which meant no apology would ever fully exist. Acceptance replaced hope. Mom reached for my arm. "Please delete the message." "No, people are judging us. They're judging what happened." Dad's voice softened. "We can work through this as a family." I shook my head gently. "I buried Ellie alone. That changed what family means to me." Mom's eyes filled. "You're punishing us forever over one mistake." I answered quietly. This wasn't one day. This was 30 years ending exactly how it always was going to. Silence stretched. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to comfort them. I simply walked inside and closed the door. The following weeks moved strangely. News traveled fast through social circles. Hadley ended her relationship with Ryan. A major client withdrew interest quietly. My parents stopped attending certain social gatherings. No dramatic public shaming. Just invitations that never came. Calls that weren't returned. The subtle social distancing that hurts more than confrontation. Ryan left his brokerage months later. My mother withdrew from church leadership. My father avoided the golf club. Consequences didn't roar. They settled. Permanent. Meanwhile, my world grew smaller but steadier. Grief therapy helped me breathe again. At school, colleagues organized a donation drive in Ellie's name. Parents I barely knew brought blankets, diapers, handwritten cards. One mother hugged me and said, "No parent should stand alone." And I realized something profound. Family isn't defined by blood proximity. It's defined by presence during unbearable moments. I created Ellie's Corner at my classroom, a small art scholarship fund for children needing supplies. Every crayon box donated felt like reclaiming part of her story from pain. I began volunteering with infant loss support groups, listening to other mothers, sitting in shared silence. Healing didn't erase grief, but it gave it direction. People sometimes ask whether I regret exposing my family. I don't celebrate their downfall. That part never felt joyful. Justice, I learned, isn't about watching someone suffer. It's about truth existing without distortion. My parents didn't lose me because I spoke out. They lost me when they decided my daughter's funeral ranked below a pool party. I simply stopped pretending otherwise. The first holiday without them felt strange. Quiet. I spent Thanksgiving at Megan's house, surrounded by loud conversation and imperfect warmth. Her grandmother squeezed my hand and said, "Love shows up. Everything else is noise." I carried that sentence with me. Months passed. The sharpest grief softened into something survivable. I still missed Ellie every day, but I no longer felt invisible. For the first time in my life, I belonged fully to myself. If there's one thing I understand now, it's this. Revenge wasn't the message I sent that afternoon. The real turning point was choosing honesty over endurance. I didn't destroy my family. I removed the shield that hid their choices. And once truth stood alone, everything rearranged naturally. Peace didn't come from winning. It came from no longer begging to be chosen. Ellie's life, short as it was, taught me that love measures itself by presence. And I will never again accept less than that. I want to ask you something honestly. If your family chose comfort over your deepest pain, would you forgive them? Or would that be the moment you finally stepped away? Who do you think was truly wrong here? And what would you have done in my place? I read every comment, and your perspectives always mean more than you know. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.